Trevor Lawrence, the golden boy, the once-in-a-generation quarterback prospect. From his teenage years, the comparisons to legends were endless and the expectations sky high. But here's the question. Did he live up to the hype, or was the weight of the NFL spotlight too much to handle? He was supposed to redefine what it meant to be an elite quarterback. So why, just a few years later, does his career feel like it's still searching for a spark? Let's dive into the ultimate expectations versus reality of Trevor Lawrence's journey, a tale of rare talent, sky-high hopes, and the unpredictable NFL stage. From the moment Trevor Lawrence first stepped onto the football field as a high school quarterback, it was clear he was something extraordinary. Hailing from a small town in Georgia, Lawrence wasn't just another top recruit. He was the top recruit. At 6 feet, 6 inches, with a smooth throwing motion and the kind of athleticism that allowed him to escape pressure with ease, Lawrence seemed to possess every trait a scout could dream of. But what really set him apart wasn't just his raw talent, it was the sense that he was destined for greatness. He was the golden boy, the quarterback who was supposed to revolutionize the position. By his junior year at Cartersville High, Lawrence had already led his team to a state championship, throwing for over 3,000 yards and 38 touchdowns in a single season. He was untouchable, both on and off the field. He was the high school player that everyone wanted to talk about, from college coaches to sports analysts, and by the time he was a senior, Lawrence had received nearly every major college offer in the country. He was ranked the #1 recruit in the nation, and it seemed like nothing could stand in his way. This hype only grew when he decided to play for Clemson University, a program that had already established itself as one of the best in the country, but was still searching for that final piece to secure its place in college football history. Lawrence was poised to be that piece. He was going to be the quarterback that brought Clemson back to the top, and possibly the one to bring the program its first national title since the days of Danny Ford in the 80s. When Lawrence stepped onto the field for his freshman season in 2018, it was clear from the start that this wasn't your average freshman. His debut against Kent State was a preview of things to come. Lawrence threw for 137 yards and 1 touchdown in just a half of play. The expectations were already out of control, and yet they only grew stronger with each passing game. Lawrence had the it factor, and it was apparent that he could do anything. That year, Clemson marched through the regular season undefeated, and Lawrence's poise and skill led them to a national championship victory over Alabama. He was only a freshman, yet the college football world was already starting to talk about him as a potential #1 overall pick in the NFL draft. In fact, some began to consider Lawrence as the best quarterback prospect since Peyton Manning, a comparison so lofty that it could make any young player buckle under pressure. But it wasn't just his football ability that set him apart, it was his presence. Lawrence had the kind of confidence that didn't feel arrogant, but instead, it radiated from him like a force field. He was a leader in the truest sense, someone who commanded respect without having to demand it. He didn't need to trash talk. He let his performance do the talking. His calm demeanor under pressure, his precision on deep throws, and his ability to stay focused in the biggest moments made him seem untouchable. Everything about him screamed future NFL star. As the years passed, Lawrence's legend only grew. He went on to lead Clemson to an undefeated regular season in 2019 and another college football playoff appearance, where they would once again face off against Alabama in the national title game. Despite losing in a devastating fashion, Lawrence's status as the best quarterback in college football was cemented. The NFL world had already begun making predictions, projecting him as the top pick in the 2021 draft. It was already written in the stars. Trevor Lawrence was going to be the savior of a struggling NFL franchise, and he would lead them to glory. By the time the 2021 NFL draft rolled around, the buzz was deafening. Trevor Lawrence was the chosen one. The Jaguars, who held the first overall pick, had a decision that was nearly as simple as a checkmark. Trevor Lawrence was going to be their quarterback of the future. There were no other contenders. The narrative was already set. Trevor Lawrence was the next Peyton Manning, the next Tom Brady, the next greatest quarterback to ever play the game. Anything less would be seen as a monumental failure, a once-in-a-lifetime talent who couldn't live up to his own hype. The NFL is a different animal. And for Trevor Lawrence, the golden boy from Clemson, stepping into the league was a stark reminder that the transition from college to professional football is often brutal. The hype that had followed him from high school to college now felt like a weight he couldn't shake off. For someone who had been adored since he was a teenager, this was the first time that his abilities, his mental toughness, and even his character would be truly tested. After being selected first overall by the Jacksonville Jaguars in the 2021 NFL Draft, Lawrence arrived in a team that was in desperate need of a fresh start. The Jaguars had been a disaster for years, bottom dwellers in the league, with a lack of leadership and no solid structure. The hope was that Lawrence, a generational talent, could be the one to turn everything around, but the reality was far from that. Lawrence entered a system that was anything but stable. Urban Meyer, the celebrated college coach who was supposed to be his mentor, struggled to adapt to the NFL. Meyer's coaching methods clashed with the realities of the professional game. He was used to dominating at the college level, where talent gaps could be overcome by sheer force of will and charisma. But the NFL isn't college football, it's a league of men. And it was clear from the start that Meyer wasn't prepared for the grind of the professional game. For Lawrence, the dysfunction of the Jaguars organization started to show in everything. The culture was toxic, the offense was inefficient, and the coaching staff was in disarray. Urban Meyer's personal drama, from his off-field controversies to his awkward interactions with players, created a chaotic environment. This disorganization permeated the team, and Lawrence, who had been used to leading in a much more structured environment at Clemson, was thrown into a firestorm that he wasn't prepared for. Instead of walking into a situation where he could thrive, Lawrence was forced to shoulder an immense amount of pressure without the proper support. The rookie season was rough. Lawrence's first few games showed flashes of his talent, but they were quickly overshadowed by mistakes and inconsistencies. He threw 3 interceptions in his first game, a harsh welcome to the NFL. But it was only the beginning. Throughout the season, Lawrence's play was marked by inaccuracy, poor decision-making, and a sense of frustration that started to mount. His ability to read defenses, something that had been one of his strong suits at Clemson, suddenly became a struggle against the complexity and speed of NFL defenses. In fact, one of the most telling aspects of Lawrence's rookie year was his tendency to make mistakes under pressure. His 17 interceptions in his rookie season were a clear sign that the transition was not going as smoothly as hoped. There were times when he looked hesitant, as if unsure of himself or his surroundings. This wasn't the confident, unflappable leader fans had been promised. He wasn't the next big thing. He was a rookie quarterback trying to figure it out in a situation that was spiraling out of control. And then there was the internal pressure, the weight of expectations. It's one thing to be anointed as the next Peyton Manning, the next Tom Brady, the next greatest quarterback of all time before even playing a single snap in the NFL. But it's another thing entirely to live up to that hype when things aren't going right. Fans, analysts, and former players all weighed in on his performances. Was Trevor Lawrence really the franchise quarterback the Jaguars were hoping for? Was he living up to the billing? Week after week, Lawrence was subjected to harsh criticism, not just from his coaches and teammates, but from the media and fans who expected instant results. The Jaguars were 0-4 when Meyer's reign came to an abrupt end. Doug Peterson, who had a track record of success, took over as head coach for the 2022 season. But for Lawrence, the damage was done. His rookie season had already shaped how people viewed him, especially after his 3-touchdown, 4-interception performance in a loss to the Buffalo Bills, and the expectations for him remained as high as ever. Despite the issues with coaching and organizational instability, there were moments that showed why Lawrence had been so highly touted. His physical tools were still on display. He had moments of brilliance, especially in games where he flashed that arm strength, his ability to read the field, and his calm under pressure. But those moments were too few and far between. In 2021, it was clear Trevor Lawrence wasn't going to be an instant savior, no matter how much people wanted him to be. The pressure to be perfect, to turn the franchise around immediately, was suffocating. Lawrence found himself learning the hard way that talent alone wasn't enough in the NFL. There's a mental game that is as important as the physical. And in 2021, Lawrence was still figuring it out. When Doug Peterson was hired as the new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2022, it felt like the beginning of a new era. The transition from Urban Meyer, a coach whose tenure was defined by turmoil and failure, wasn't just a coaching change. It was a fresh start for Trevor Lawrence, who had struggled to find his footing in a disorganized system. Peterson, a Super Bowl winning coach, brought with him not only experience but a calm, steady hand that Lawrence desperately needed. For Lawrence, it felt like a breath of fresh air. The 2021 season had been a nightmare, marked by chaos and pressure that often felt crushing. With Meyer gone, the weight of constant negativity and confusion started to lift. Peterson was different. He believed in Lawrence. He saw the talent, yes, but he also understood the human side of the young quarterback. He knew that Lawrence's confidence had taken a hit, and instead of pushing him to perform beyond his limits, Peterson chose to nurture and develop him. For Lawrence, it was the first real taste of what it felt like to have a coach who trusted him. A coach who wasn't just focused on wins but on growth. The shift wasn't immediate. At the start of the 2022 season, Lawrence still had his demons to face. His rookie year's mistakes were fresh in his mind. And there were times in the early part of the season where the old hesitation crept back into his game. But Peterson knew that Lawrence needed patience, and he gave him the time to evolve. This wasn't about proving a point or trying to fix a broken quarterback in one season. It was about giving Lawrence the space and confidence to find himself. And then, it started to click. The early weeks of 2022 showed glimpses of the Lawrence that scouts had raved about. He wasn't perfect, but there was a control to his game, a steadiness that hadn't been there before. His footwork improved, his decision-making was sharper, and his accuracy, which had faltered during his rookie season, was starting to come back into focus. He began to show the resilience that fans had seen in flashes during his time at Clemson. But it was his leadership that really started to stand out. He wasn't just the guy who had all the tools, but the guy who could take charge when the chips were down. One of the most defining moments of Lawrence's second season came in the wild card playoff game against the Los Angeles Chargers. It was a game that would define not just his season, but possibly the trajectory of his entire career. The Jaguars were down by 27 points at one point, and Lawrence had thrown 4 interceptions in the first half. Everything seemed lost. The narrative seemed inevitable. Lawrence, the golden boy, was going to fall short once again. Yet, in the second half, something incredible happened. Lawrence didn't panic. He didn't fold. Instead, he rose to the challenge, leading his team to one of the most remarkable comebacks in NFL history. Lawrence threw 4 touchdowns in the second half alone, guiding the Jaguars to a 31-30 victory. His poise and mental toughness shone through in a way that had been missing in his rookie season. This wasn't just about the stats. It was about the story of Lawrence finally taking command of the moment. After years of hype and frustration, Trevor Lawrence had his defining moment, and it couldn't have come at a better time. It was the moment the world began to believe, once again, that he was the player everyone thought he could be. For Lawrence, this victory wasn't just about beating the Chargers. It was about silencing the doubts that had haunted him since his rookie year. He had proven, on the biggest stage, that he had the mental fortitude to handle the pressure and the maturity to lead his team when the stakes were highest. That second half wasn't just about football. It was about redemption. For the first time, Trevor Lawrence was playing with the swagger and confidence that had made him such a highly touted prospect. As the season continued, Lawrence's growth was evident in every game. His chemistry with his receivers, especially Christian Kirk and Zay Jones, grew stronger. His ability to make quick reads, adjust to defenses, and take calculated risks showed that he was finally coming into his own. But more than anything, he was starting to become the leader the Jaguars needed him to be. Peterson's system worked well for Lawrence. It was a perfect blend of freedom and structure, allowing Lawrence to tap into his potential while still being nurtured through the learning process. By the time the 2022 season wrapped up, Lawrence had turned a corner. His 25 touchdowns to 8 interceptions ratio was a clear sign that he was finding his rhythm. The Jaguars were no longer a laughingstock, and Lawrence had begun to emerge as a franchise quarterback. After the roller coaster of his rookie season and the redemption arc of his sophomore year, the future for Trevor Lawrence now hangs in the balance. The question on everyone's mind is no longer whether Lawrence has the talent to be a star. That's been proven. The question is whether he can sustain this success and truly become one of the greats in an NFL filled with legends. For Lawrence, the 2022 season was a pivotal moment. The challenges of his rookie year didn't disappear, but they were overcome by the fire of a player who was starting to recognize his full potential. His performance in that wild card playoff game against the Los Angeles Chargers was a statement, not just to his doubters, but to himself. For the first time, it seemed like the weight of the world wasn't bearing down on his shoulders. Instead of collapsing under pressure, Lawrence stood tall and delivered. The kind of resilience he showed in the face of adversity was a glimpse of what could be a Hall of Fame career in the making. The expectations, however, haven't changed. In fact, they've only grown. After the Jaguars' surprising playoff appearance in 2022, the hype surrounding Lawrence reached new heights. There's a new hope for Jacksonville, and with it, a new sense of urgency for Lawrence. No longer is he the promising young quarterback now. He's expected to be the leader who will take the Jaguars to the next level. But with that responsibility comes immense pressure. At the heart of this pressure is the looming comparison to some of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. In his rookie year, Lawrence was compared to Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and Andrew Luck, the players who are etched in NFL history as some of the most accomplished and successful quarterbacks. And while Lawrence's second year gave fans reason to believe greatness in the NFL isn't guaranteed just because you have all the physical tools, the NFL is unforgiving. Some of the most talented quarterbacks in history never reached their full potential. Some, like Ryan Leaf and Jamarcus Russell, were seen as generational talents only to fade into obscurity. And Lawrence is fully aware of that. The pressure to live up to the hype is unrelenting, especially when everyone expects you to be the quarterback who turns a franchise's fortunes around. But Lawrence has something special. It's not just his physical tools, it's the mindset he's developed in the face of adversity. He's learned that greatness isn't just about talent, it's about resilience, mental toughness, and the ability to block out the noise when the world is watching. And while the NFL is filled with young quarterbacks who are quick to buckle under pressure, Lawrence seems to have a rare ability to stay focused and grounded. As the 2023 season approaches, Lawrence is in the perfect position to continue his ascent. The Jaguars, for the first time in years, have a solid foundation. The offensive line is improving, the wide receiver corps is strong, and the defense is becoming a unit that can compete with the best. And then there's Doug Peterson, the coach who has proven he can develop quarterbacks and win big games. Peterson's presence is more than just a comfort for Lawrence, it's a partnership. Peterson knows how to get the most out of his quarterbacks, and he's already proven he can take a young signal caller all the way to the top. Remember, Peterson was the mastermind behind Carson Wentz's MVP caliber season and the Eagles' Super Bowl victory. But here's the thing. No one can predict the future. Even the most talented quarterbacks face roadblocks, injuries, and setbacks that can derail a promising career. Tom Brady, for instance, was drafted in the 6th round, and his NFL journey wasn't as smooth as the media would have you believe. The story of greatness is never linear. It's a road full of twists and turns. For Trevor Lawrence, 2023 will be a critical year. If he can build on the progress he made in 2022, keep improving his footwork, his decision-making, and his leadership, he'll have the chance to establish himself as a true franchise quarterback. There's already been a shift in the narrative surrounding Lawrence. People are no longer asking if he can be great. They're asking when he will become great. The answer to that question is still uncertain, but there's a quiet confidence in his game that suggests he's on the right path. The most important thing Lawrence has learned, though, is that greatness isn't always about being the loudest or the flashiest. Sometimes it's about being the most consistent, the most reliable, and the one who leads his team when it matters most. And after the comeback against the Chargers, It's clear that Lawrence has that killer instinct in him, but there's still so much left to prove. Can he stay healthy? Will the Jaguars build around him the way the Buffalo Bills built around Josh Allen? Or the Arizona Cardinals around Kyler Murray? Can Lawrence remain calm and poised in the postseason when the stakes are even higher? The pressure of being the franchise quarterback is only going to increase. But if he can continue to build on his leadership, his understanding of the game, and his ability to perform in clutch moments, there's no reason why Trevor Lawrence can't be one of the next great quarterbacks in NFL history. As the 2023 season unfolds, Trevor Lawrence stands at a crossroads, on the verge of becoming something truly special, or possibly falling short of the immense expectations placed upon him since his high school days. But one thing is undeniable: his journey is far from over, and the story of his career is still in the process of being written. When you look back at Trevor Lawrence's career so far, it's hard to ignore the mountains he's already climbed. From the moment he stepped onto the football field at Cartersville High School, where he first showcased his jaw-dropping arm strength, to leading Clemson to a national championship as a true freshman, Lawrence has always been under the microscope. His journey has been marked by outsized expectations, the kind that can either fuel a player to greatness or break them under pressure. And yet, despite the weight of those expectations, Lawrence has continued to grow and evolve. His rookie season was a testament to the brutality of the NFL and the challenges of transitioning from college stardom to the professional game. It was a season filled with mistakes, struggles, and moments of self-doubt, but it was also a season that showed the world his resilience. Despite the chaos that surrounded him, be it from a failing coaching staff or the pressure of being the #1 overall pick, Lawrence never lost sight of the bigger picture. He never gave in to the critics or the weight of the moment. And that in itself is a trait that many great quarterbacks share: the ability to weather the storm and keep going, no matter how difficult things may get. By the time Doug Peterson arrived to lead the Jaguars in 2022, Lawrence's journey was at a pivotal crossroads. That first season under Peterson was like a rebirth. The team was still young, still building, but there was a new sense of purpose and direction. For Lawrence, the transition to Peterson's system was like finding a new gear, a sense of confidence that had been absent the year before. It wasn't just about the physical skills, it was about mental growth, about learning how to handle the pressures of being a leader and a franchise quarterback. That wild card playoff game against the Los Angeles Chargers will forever be remembered as the moment when Trevor Lawrence officially arrived. Down by 27 points, with the game slipping away, Lawrence didn't falter. Instead, he led the Jaguars to one of the most remarkable comebacks in NFL history, throwing 4 touchdowns in the second half and clinching the win for his team. That game wasn't just a victory, it was a statement. Lawrence showed that he could handle adversity, that he had the mental toughness to thrive in the most high-pressure situations. It was the game that proved to the world that he wasn't just the next big thing in the NFL, he was the real deal. But even with that huge victory, there's still so much more to be done. The legacy of a quarterback isn't written in one game or even one season. The true measure of greatness is about sustaining success over time, about continuing to perform at a high level despite the pressure, the setbacks, and the challenges. And for Trevor Lawrence, the real test will come in the years ahead. The 2023 season will be a defining one. The hype surrounding him hasn't gone away, it's only grown. He's no longer just a young quarterback with potential. Now he's expected to lead the Jaguars to contention, to compete with the NFL's best. And while the path to greatness may not always be straight, there will be obstacles. There will be growing pains. Lawrence has already shown that he has the ability to rise above. But here's the truth: expectations can be a double-edged sword. The NFL is full of players who were once touted as generational talents, only to see their careers fall short of their potential. The pressure of being the franchise quarterback can break even the most talented of athletes. So the question becomes, Can Lawrence sustain his growth? Can he avoid the pitfalls that have derailed others before him? What makes Trevor Lawrence so special is his ability to remain focused on the task at hand, no matter the noise around him. He's been through more than most young quarterbacks. He's faced failure, disappointment, and the weight of being the chosen one. But instead of succumbing to those pressures, Lawrence has continued to learn and evolve, proving that he has the resilience to carry not just his own dreams, but the dreams of an entire franchise. Lawrence's legacy is still unfolding, and in many ways, we're only just beginning to see what he's truly capable of. It's easy to forget that he's still just 23 years old, with a world of potential still untapped. The reality is that Lawrence has the tools, physical and mental, to become one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. His path won't be easy, but with his leadership, his poise under pressure, and the belief he has in himself, Trevor Lawrence is poised to become the player everyone expected him to be. As his career continues, the question remains, what will Trevor Lawrence's legacy be? Will he become the quarterback who led the Jacksonville Jaguars to a Super Bowl victory? Or will he be remembered as the one who never quite lived up to his potential? Only time will tell. But one thing is for sure, Trevor Lawrence's story is far from over. The best is yet to come.